We're so excited to be here today in the What's Your One More podcast room, hosting the first episode of KWAP Reels, real lives, real story, real people. I'm your host, Amanda Trahan, and we're here with Joe Newton.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be here. We're super excited to be sharing this information with you. And we're also really excited to have a kind of local celebrity with us, Cody Thompson. We're going to throw some love on you. I wanted to hear his story and want to share that with y'all as he went from surfing to gym ownership to real estate.
Yeah.
And when you look at real estate, there's so many different ways people come into this industry. It's kind of exciting to hear their story. So, Cody, let's think about that a little bit. So you kind of started in the water.
I did start in the water, yeah. Born and raised right here in Jacksonville Beach, and kind of just got thrown into the ocean at a young age. And my whole life has kind of revolved around the ocean and the beach and that from then on.
So when you were thrown in, was there a surfboard attached? Is that how that got started? How did you get into surfing?
I think at that time it was a boogie board.
Okay, nice.
Usually where everyone kicks it off. So just spent time at the beach with my other three brothers and kind of grew up pretty close to the beach. And that's just how we spent our days, just down at the beach, and naturally kind of went into the ocean and came out with a surfboard and a boogie board and all that. So my parents actually didn't really surf much, but just came naturally to us because of, just nothing else to do when you're down there. You get bored making sandcastles.
So how does that get turned into a surfing career? How does that transition happen?
That's a tough one to answer, really. I guess a lot of that was created by my parents' just support. Allowing us any opportunity we wanted to pursue, they would kind of make it happen for us, which was really awesome. We were really fortunate to have that growing up. So we tried out a ton of sports and whatever we, took interest in, my parents just went all in and provided the support. And if we weren't into it anymore, then we pulled the plug and we're on to the next. So surfing was one of those things that we all took major interest in. And naturally from there, I think we were maybe like 8 or 9, signed up for a local junior event and friends are doing it and this and that. So kind of get into it. And then we saw some success early on and it just kind of snowballed from there. So from there, next step is, trying to find some sponsors to support you, because it can be expensive to foot that bill, going to contests and traveling, not just regionally, but, out to California, then internationally for events and stuff. So, that's kind of how it happened, I guess.
So it's almost kind of a natural progression. You get started and you have some success and it just keeps growing. So how old were you when you really kind of came to a professional level?
I think I had my first professional win in a pro contest when I was maybe 17 or 18.
Wow. So,
nowadays kids are signing pretty lucrative deals at 10, 11, 12. So it just depends. But I think I was, I guess my pro career kind of took off more around like age 17, 18, right when I finished homeschooling in high school and went out onto the junior pro circuit where, all the contests were paying prize money and we had sponsorship deals and stuff like that going at the same time.
So when we were talking before we came in here, you kind of indicated that your career was going along and you kind of reached a point where you had to decide, am I going to get serious with this and really develop some other skill sets, physical, diet, just really dive into it. So tell me a little bit about that. How did you make that decision that, hey, I've got to get serious about this? What was going on then?
So from a young age, I was all in on surfing, and my parents took me out of school. I finished at a traditional middle school, and from 9th grade and on was just homeschooling, traveling. So didn't necessarily get the traditional education. It's kind of more like, learn as you go and learn the real world fast. And we did a lot of stuff on our own, traveling around and stuff at a young age. But I would say the transition from amateur career, when that ended around 17, 18, into professional career, it's such a big jump. And you see it in other sports too, where college athletes go into the majors or NFL or whatever, and there's a learning curve there. So I had some success 18, 19, 20. Then it just became more challenging. And then there's other distractions in life, and I just kind of got a little complacent, I think, and a little lazy, and the results were not happening. And I wasn't happy with the way I was surfing, and I knew something had to change, and I was all in on surfing, right? That was all I had. I didn't have a college degree to fall back on or anything like that. So it was, do your best, do everything you can right now. And luckily I kind of figured out what that was going to be for me. It was going to take discipline and training and working on myself mentally and physically to get me to that point where I could perform at the level that I knew I was capable of. I just wasn't.
So you really rededicated yourself, in a sense, to getting ready. You go to Puerto Rico, right? You win. So what happened from there forward?
Yeah, that was a pivotal point. That was 2013. So leading up to that for about a year or so, I was putting in a lot of work on myself physically and mentally, and just kind of trying something new, really. And that gave me this newfound confidence that was like, it was through the roof. It was kind of insane. I actually used to do these affirmations that I didn't really truly believe in them. But I remember I had a team manager when I was like 19. He's like, man, you just got to wake up and look in the mirror and say, I'm going to win. And I used to try that, and I would just kind of say it to myself and then chuckle at the end of it and just kind of go out and then lose. But it got to the point where I was training and I started to feel that confidence, and I got some results at these other like local pro-am events, and I started using that affirmation. And I was in Puerto Rico in 2013 at one of the bigger events I'd competed in up to that point. I mean, there was like legends that I looked up to my whole life. I remember seeing people just like in the airport on the way there. I was like, whoa, this guy's there. Like, this is going to be a hard contest. And I think there was like 144 guys, and it was like the best in the world. And I got there, and I had qualified through a few rounds. The waves were kind of small. I knew there's a big swell coming, and the morning of the finals, I woke up. There's 32 guys left in the contest. I was happy to make it there because I was going to go home with a check. It was going to be maybe $800 check or something. But first place was $15,000. I was like, it was in the back of my mind, but I'm like, so I woke up, I sat on the side of the bed, and I look in the mirror, and I just had like this feeling, and I go, you're going to win today. And for the first time, like, I had this, like, I didn't chuckle. It was just a straight face. I was like, it gives me chills thinking about it. But yeah, and the rest of the day just kind of played out exactly how I envisioned. And from there, it was like, whoa, I just got something back in my career. Now it's time to figure out, where do we go from here? So at that point, the end of the year, I was up for renegotiation on a contract, and I was like, the timing couldn't have been better. Mm-hmm. So I went up to renegotiate. I was 23, and I wasn't much of a contest surfer at that point. I did contest. I did more of the regional events just to stay relevant. That was kind of my deal. As more of a local guy, be that local professional and go do regional events. Puerto Rico is kind of in our region here, so my whole thing kind of shifted. I'm like, now I have to go out and do the qualifying series, and that was a qual. So that would be considered like a Corn Ferry event if you're talking golf. So I'm like, all right, well, now I'm on the Corn Ferry tour of surfing. I got to spend all my money on going to all these international countries and go do that. So got to the point late in the fall where I was at another contest and I hurt myself. And I had just qualified for the Triple Crown in Hawaii, which was like 3 of the biggest contests of the year, all ending. And so it was kind of like this depressing moment where I was hurt. I was up for renegotiation. My renegotiation of my contract didn't go the way I wanted it to. They essentially said, hey, you had this one big result, but it was a one-off.
Oh, wow. So
they didn't want to support me financially to do the tour the next year. And I was hurt. And it was kind of a depressing moment where I was like, all right, well, I'm going to continue to do this and pursue, but maybe the writing is on the wall where I have to figure out what the next chapter is. And luckily my renegotiation allowed me some time to transition smoothly. So from then on, it was like, okay, I need to start figuring out what is the next chapter. And I know that fitness had gotten me to that point where I could perform my best. It got me a huge result, a nice fat check. Can I use that as maybe my next career? And that's how I ended up going down that road and opening up my gym here in Atlantic Beach. And I did that for 5 or 6 years.
So at what age did you move from surfing to the gym? When did that happen?
It was a pretty smooth transition because I was still technically under contract with a few different companies. My main apparel contract, it wasn't as much as I was making at the peak, but I think I was 27 when I opened up, 26 or 27, I think. And, I had no business degree. I had no high school, I was just kind of learned by doing and traveling and all that. But I did know how to sort of run my own business because that's what surfing is. I've never been a W-2 employee of any company. It's always been wake up and kind of figure it out and market yourself and get your 1099 and do that's it.
So you're in a gym now. Yep. You own it. Mm-hmm. You're coming off the waves and into the weight room.
Yep.
And so you did that for 5 years?
Yeah. I 5.5 years I had my training facility in Atlantic Beach. Yeah. So from I think I opened it in 2017 and I got licensed in real estate in 2021. So, and there was one like half a year where I was doing both at the same time. I'm always like very conservative and really want to make sure I'm doing the right thing and having that fallback. So I've never like fully jumped in on anything, but I always, I've had a couple things going at once and then I make my decision on, okay, I'm going all in on this now.
So, surfing, mm-hmm. weight room, real estate. Those things go beautifully together, right?
Yeah,
it's just such a smooth.
Let's connect the dots here. So, obviously, I opened the gym in my late 20s, 2017, and still getting some checks from surfing, still doing some local events, and I think I traveled a little bit. And did some stuff international, but I can only be gone for a week at a time before my members are like, hey, get your butt back here. We're paying you a membership. So, and then I think I hit a ceiling at like the second or third year at the gym. I had a 900 square foot space. I had, 60 or 70 members, and I realized that I was capped. And I was making money that I was happy with at that time. The bulk of my members were working in real estate, which was funny. And that's kind of what inspired me, really. I had mortgage lenders in there. I had investors in there, flippers. I had a handful of agents. Just going back, thinking about it, it's kind of funny. But when we'd be training, I would just be picking their brain. Just, what are you working on? And I saw their schedule. Obviously, they could afford my services, so I knew something was good there. And that kind of just led me to wonder, really.
If you could do it.
Yeah. And I've always been interested and passionate. At that time, I had my wife and I owned our home, so we had gone through that. Our realtor at the time, he actually sat me down like 15 years ago. I think he saw the writing on the wall over the surfing stuff. He was in surfing a lot. His name was Paul West. He was an awesome local realtor here. He passed away recently, unfortunately. But he sat me down over coffee and was like, man, I think you should get into real estate. And at the time, I'm like, I'm surfing, man.
Time for that.
I'm like, every other person I know is a realtor too. And it's funny because there's a gym on every corner too, but can't let that stop you from diving in. If you're passionate about something, you can always separate yourself from the pack.
All right. So that brings you up to real estate. I got to get my license. I got to put it someplace. KW comes on the scene with some other folks. Tell us a little bit about how it is that you decided Keller Williams was the place for you.
So when I first got licensed, I was telling a few of the members at the gym, and everyone's happy for me, and they're all coming from different brokerages. So of course, sure. I took the time to meet and talk with them, and ask them basically what kind of support does your brokerage offer? because I'm totally new at this. I want to learn as much as I can right out of the gate. I want to spend the first month or two, or however long it's going to take to just learn before I put this into practice. So I just kind of let a few people know, and then a member at the gym teed me up with an interview with Mark here at the office. And then I met at a couple other brokerages too. But I just remember walking in, and I told Mark what my goals were, and he kind of laid it all out, put it on the board, and I'm looking at it just going, all right, that's what I want to do. And this seems like the place I can do it at. They have it all laid out. It's basically up to you if you want to do it. And I've never had an issue with discipline or doing things and getting them done, because that's just how I've lived my life. So I went straight from a meeting with Mark at Keller Williams to the beach. It was a Friday evening, and I sat there. I was looking at the waves. There was actually a pro contest the next day, at like a local pro-am, and I was watching the waves, and I just felt really kind of at peace with what the next chapter was going to be. I was still running the gym at the time too, but I had that as well. So I was in a good place. And the dues, obviously there's some startup fees associated with real estate. So I'm like, if I can get, I think, top 3 in this contest tomorrow, then it'll pay my dues. So that was my goal, and I did, and I got that check. It was a small check, but straight to the bank and straight to Keller Williams. Like, cool, I'm hanging my license here, and I'm going to go back to the gym and train my members, and then as soon as I finish up in the morning, I'm going to come over here and learn as much as I can. And I remember there were some really long days, and my productivity coach at the time was great, flexible, worked with me really well. And I was putting in, 7 to 8 hours a day at the gym, and then straight to learning about real estate and how I could apply that. And then eventually just spreading the word at the gym that here's what I'm doing. I'm learning. I'm putting this all into.
Here's my card.
Yeah. And then my first transaction was a member at the gym.
Nice.
Yeah.
You worked your circle.
Yeah, I worked my sphere.
So talk to us about that first year in real estate. What did that look like for you?
So the first year in real estate, I remember setting some goals with the productivity coach at the time, Emily, and I was pretty conservative with my goals, as I've always kind of been, because I didn't know what I was getting into. I knew that, I could set them high, but I didn't want to set myself up for failure. But I think I met with her like 3 or 4 different times, and we kept moving the goalpost out further, awesome. Which was cool. I was like, my first year, I just want to cap, because that was the big thing. You sell a certain amount, and then, you get your commission, you take it all. And so that was the goal. And then from there, I'm like, okay, well, I set a goal financially, and then I kept moving that goalpost. But my first year, I ended up, I think I did right around $5 million. Incredible. In real estate. Yeah. Incredible. I think it was like 11 transactions. And I think I wrote down like 5 or 6 on paper, and then I kept moving that. I'm like, well, it's doable. Let's do this. So, a few months in, my lease at the gym was up for renegotiation. And that's when I had to have a conversation with my wife and try to figure out, is this sustainable? Is this what we want to go all in on? And around that time too, we found out that my wife was pregnant as well.
How exciting.
So, yeah. And the schedule was, I wake up at 4 a.m, have coffee, go to the gym, train members for 3 to 4 hours, come home, work on my real estate from basically I had a 9 to 4 was my real estate. And then from 4 to 8 p.m. or 7 p.m., whatever. So I was putting in some long days, and I knew that once the baby came, it wasn't going to be sustainable.
Well, and you want to be a part of that life too, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I put the word out that, hey, I might not be doing this any longer, and I was going to go down the road of put everything into real estate, and packaged everything up, the gym, and found some great trainers that were kind of transitioning out of like a nomadic lifestyle to like, we want to do this. And it was like this perfect like switch of, okay, you own the gym now. They rebranded everything, but I just left everything in place and sold it to them. And I just went on and started doing real estate.
So you're familiar with transferring wealth and figuring out how to make those things happen.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. I never consider myself like this crazy entrepreneurial, self-made, like all those buzzwords are just not really in my head at all. It's not really how I try to live my life, but
Well, and yet you are, right? So let's talk about that first year. I mean, 5 million, 11 transactions, no one's giving you leads. How do you make that happen?
So for me, it was just leaning in on the things that were easy and accessible for me, which is, social media and just having organic conversations led to doing business. So the best thing for me, and the advice that I give new agents too, is you have to put yourself out there. I mean, getting your license and being what we call a secret agent and being scared that people know you're an agent is just, it's not a winning strategy. So what I would do was I would put everything out on my social media. And when I went full on real estate, I was just loading up my social media. Facebook, I would just put as much on there as I could. And I wasn't calling people and harassing them about real estate. That's, no one wants to get called and harassed about that. So put everything out on social media and people knew what I was doing. And there's people looking at that you don't even think are looking at it.
Absolutely.
And that's the part that kind of was a shock to me. And then I would go surfing and all my sphere is out there. And naturally they would come up to me and ask me, how is the market? How's things going? It looks like you're doing this and that. So it really just put myself out there in my work and then go and enjoy the things I like to do, which is surfing. And, the people that I know and most of my friends are out there. So it's kind of an organic, it's an organic conversation when I go out and surf.
Well, I remember you being both an educator and a content creator, sort of. Like you really meshed the two together when you had first gotten into real estate, which I always thought was really cool.
I did, yeah. So at that point, I was always look at things through like an investor lens too, and not just, you buy a house, you live there for 30 years and you die in it. I'm always big on, how can you build wealth? How can you learn? How can you just grow? And that's kind of the mindset I've always had. And because of that, now we're on our third property that we've bought and fixed up and, we'll maybe eventually sell. So that was a huge part of it that I try and share with people too, because there's a whole side of real estate that people don't talk about as much, or people don't feel like they're included in.
Absolutely.
Because you think of investors and you think of this upper tier of people that just have all this money that you'll never be able to be a part of. So trying to bring that to light.
Absolutely.
So even first-time home buyers, I remember when I bought our first home, the agent, Paul West, he's like, man, you're not going to be here for more than 3 years. You'll be selling this and on to the next. And I'm like, this is our primary home, man. We're going to die here.
Yeah.
And he was right. And then, 3 years later, we turned into a rental property, bought another one, fixed that up, flipped that one. And it's just like, there's so many ways to build wealth within real estate, not just selling real estate, but you have to be looking at it through all angles. And that's kind of what I like to put out on my social media.
I think a lot of people don't realize that 90% of millionaires were actually created through real estate. And it's taking that step-up model and being able to transfer, building rental properties, those investments and whatnot. So sharing that education, I think, is one of the biggest avenues that we have to be helpful to the community, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not just about, helping people buy real estate. It's helping people build wealth and maybe generational wealth, and which is pretty cool to think about. It's something that, it wasn't really a part of my upbringing, but it's something that I'm passionate about. I like learning about. I listen to podcasts and read books and all that stuff. And it's such a cool avenue to go down, because I never felt like I was included in that category until you go out there and you just kind of do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a real estate investor, but yeah, I've bought.
You are by definition.
I've bought and sold houses. Yeah, personally,
Yeah.
not just working. And I've worked with investors and worked with wholesalers and helped people, consulted on flips and stuff. So yeah, I just love that part of it.
So you crush your first year, you buy several properties. How does Keller Williams help you in that transition?
So the big thing for me was having the support to know what I was doing as an agent.
Yeah.
And that was something that was crucial to me when I was meeting with brokerages. Basically, my question to them was, hey, lay out your training. What does it look like? Is it in person? Is it video? Is it, are we just going to be watching what is it? Tell me, because I know how I like to learn. And that has to basically align with my learning style. And then from there, you know, we're going to learn as much as we can in the 30 days, the onboarding. But from there, I need the support.
Right.
And that was crucial too. And we have great broker support here. We have a productivity coach that will pick up the phone. But another thing too is just having an office of agents that you can lean on here, which is awesome. I mean, high producing agents that I wanted to surround myself with. You know, I never thought I would be in that league. And then, you know, you spend enough time around them and pick their brain enough and just surround yourself with people that are doing better than you. And it's just, that's kind of how I've evolved. And then, you know, being able to call them, pick up the phone. And if I have questions, there's just so much, every transaction you learn so many new things. There's so many different scenarios, but having people to talk with through those is something that Keller's provided a lot of, and that's been a huge help.
I often hear that people think real estate offices are like these Shark Tanks. So it's one of the things that I think is so cool about our agents, that they're willing to share all the things that they've learned. So share with us. I'm an agent. I'm ready to take my business to the next level. What do I need to do?
I would say two parts.
Okay.
The first part would be spend time in your office and make sure you're spending time in your office and utilizing that time to your advantage. You know, introduce yourself, come out of your shell a little bit. I'm not naturally an extrovert. You know, it takes me a little bit to warm up to people, but I got uncomfortable for a little bit and made sure I built those relationships with the agents that I wanted to be like. Mm-hmm. And it helps a lot. So my advice would be identify agents who are at a level that you want to be at, and, you know, take them to coffee or just pick their brain. You know, everyone's been really, it's an open door policy here. And I love that. You know, it was a big misconception, I think, in our industry, is that everyone's got these trade secrets and everyone's not willing to help. But, so identify those people that you can call. You know, we have great coaches and brokers. Not everyone's available at all hours of the time. Of course. And when you start doing transactions, you're going to have questions. It's just inevitable. There's so many things, and you want to be the expert. So you need to get those answers so you can be competent and confident to, you know, really be a professional and provide a great service for people. So I'm always happy to be that agent now for newer agents. So, and the second part would be, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Don't be a secret agent. Right. You have to put yourself out there. Use social media to your advantage, and don't spend all your time in your office or your home office or inside, because you're not building relationships in your house or you know, working in your home office or whatever. Really do your work, put yourself out there on your social media, use your Instagram, use your Facebook. It's all free. It's great. And then when you go out and, you know, for me, it's surfing or the beach or whatever, hanging with friends, it comes up organically.
Of course.
Always. So find things that you like to do, and don't stop doing those things because you get so busy in your work. You have to do that. That's how you strengthen your relationships. And it's all about strong relationships and, you know, having close friends and support and you know, that's, so.
I think people forget sometimes that social media is really a 365 touch program. Every single day you have the ability to get in front of your people for free and actually connect with what matters to them. So I absolutely love that advice.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate the content you're putting out too. It doesn't have to be great.
Right.
You know, I go back and look at some of the stuff I put out where I'm talking to the camera. I'm like, oh, wow, I should go ahead and delete that now. But you know, it's got me to where I am now, and you learn something new, and it really just, people don't care that much about the content. They see that you're working, you're putting yourself out there, and you know, you're providing some value, and that's all you can do.
They're just happy to see you on there.
Yeah.
You know, and something that captured me about Cody, there's a video out there that we were looking at earlier of you surfing. And one of the things that I noticed in that video is there's a scene of you kind of watching the waves and you're studying them. And that was a part of that world that you were in, knowing a lot of us look at surfers and they're just slamming the waves and like, oh man, that's so cool. Don't realize that there's actually a plan behind that. You're thinking about the wave and how it's moving and how you're going to deal with it. That same strategy mindset you brought to real estate. And so no matter where people are coming from, there's something already developed in them that'll help them be successful with the right tools and processes that Keller Williams provides. And so I've always appreciated how intentional you are and how detail-oriented you are as well. But I think the story is so cool to me because what a transition from riding the waves to lifting the weights to selling them, selling the property. So it's a really neat story, and we appreciate everything you bring to real estate and everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're grateful to have you as part of the office.
Awesome.
And we appreciate everyone watching and learning a little bit more, not only about Keller Williams, but about Cody.
And I'm sure Cody's okay for me to say this. If you have any questions for him, I'm sure he'd be glad to talk to you about what he did for his social media or really making that transition from one business to the other. Thank you so much, Cody, for being here today.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.